the Executive Director, Health of Mother Earth Foundation, OMEF, Dr. Nimo Bassey, is an environmentalist, a very foremost one as far as Nigeria is concerned. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
And if you're wondering what we're talking about, like Joyce mentioned, we've been having politicians take advantage of this platform. He's not a politician this morning. I mentioned an environmentalist. And the reason why we have him in the studio is because there have been public health safety concerns for some times now. People have been speaking on social media and other platforms concerning consumption, what we eat, and what we don't eat, and the nature of what we eat. And Nigeria has been battling food insecurity for a while. It's been a lot challenging lately, especially with the harsh economic realities. And so people really don't care about what they eat. And we also realize there have been conversation about genetically modified organisms, talking about GMO foods that people are consuming now, and the influx of them into the market. And that's why we say, okay, let's have this conversation this morning. Let's raise awareness. Let's ensure that people are informed and have better perspective of what constitutes GMO foods, their safety for you and I, and all that. That's why we have Dr. Nimo Bassey in the house this morning, and we'll speak into some of these issues this morning. Thank you very much again, Doctor, for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
So the concerns are out there. The last I heard about this was telomeres, and the fact that yes, they have made inroads into Nigeria. I also heard there are soya beans in the market at the moment, and all the food consumables, especially among the processed foods. Are this true?
Yes, Nigerian biosafety law was enacted in 2015, just in the dying days of President Jonathan's government, and about 1 year after, the gateways were opened for GMOs to flood into this nation. The first to be approved was BT cotton, and that cotton variety was the exact variety, genetically modified cotton variety that failed in Burkina Faso, but Nigeria just opened the doors and accepted it. With the argument we heard about that was, well, we didn't have, we've not had cotton pyramids anymore. The textile industry is struggling. But all this was not, we have not asked the question, why did the textile industry actually collapse in Nigeria? Was it because of lack of cotton? Was it because of some other factors? And of course, there are a lot of economic factors that led to that. But the first food, GMO food, there's some GMO foods already cultivated in Nigeria. BT cotton, BT cotton is one. Some people say, well, nobody eats cotton, but people use cotton seed to make oil that is used in food. So one way or the other, it still comes back to eating. But we have also genetically modified beans. They call it cowpea. So when Nigerians hear genetically modified cowpea, they don't know it's the beans that we used to make akara, to make more and the rest. And so that has been given to farmers, and it's engineered to kill the pest that normally disturbs the harvest. So if the pest eats the beans, the pest will die, or the pest is repelled from eating the beans. And so so the beans itself has now become a pesticide. So eating that beans, you're actually eating a pesticide. That's to put it plainly. We also have this telomeres that you mentioned. It was released to the market, to farmers with very much fanfare a few months ago. And the truth about that is that if you pick up the package of telomeres in the market, you see hybrid telomeres. That's what is written on it. Genetically engineered is not mentioned at all. But really, it's genetically engineered hybrid telomeres. And that brings a lot of, it confuses a lot of people, because when people hear about hybrid, they just say, well, it's improved seed. And that's the way the promoters of GMOs in Nigeria, the government agencies who are actually pushing these things to the market, that's what they tell the farmers, that they're giving the farmers improved seeds. Instead of telling them, they're giving them genetically engineered seeds and crops. So that is a big problem. And the biggest issue about this is the fact that the Nigerian law requires that every GMO must be labeled so that the consumer can choose whether they want to eat GMOs or not. But when you look at our own context, the way we sell food, in basins, in buckets, in cups, on the roadside, in marketplaces, we don't label beans. This is the kind of beans, this is kind of corn, or this is the kind of whatever, soya bean. So Nigerians are being forced to eat GMOs without knowing they're eating GMOs, and that is against the law. The law requires that every GMO must be labeled. So if the government cannot label GMOs, government has no business whatsoever bringing GMOs into the market in Nigeria.
Well, for those who are listening out there this morning, the concern is what's GMO in itself? I can have a good understanding. I've been privileged to attend some training on this, but there are a lot of people. You just mentioned people sell in basin,
Yes.
people buy in cups. They don't understand exactly what GMO is. What is GMO? What is the danger of consuming GMO products?
All right. First of all, let me just speak to the fact that people don't understand what GMOs are. And even the government agencies promoting GMOs, which is the Nigerian Biotechnology Development Agency, as well as even the regulator, Nigerian Biosafety Management Agency, they are unable to explain what GMOs are to the understanding of the grassroots farmers on the farm. And that's why they just tell them these are improved seeds, which is which covers up a lot of things. It doesn't really explain what it is. And it makes people accept without any question. So GMOs are genetically modified organisms. It could be genetically modified crops, it can be genetically modified fish, it can be genetically modified anything. So the elements, the plants or the crops, those ones that are the DNA, which is the basic component of the being of the cells, are being modified by bringing genetic material from another species. So you want to make maybe tomatoes or corn that would have certain traits. You get the genetic material from another species that is not related at all. It's something unnatural. It's artificial. For example, you can take genetic material from fish and put it in corn, or take from human being and put it in some food item. Some years ago, genetic material was taken from human breast milk and put in rice, a rice variety, to fight dehydration in children. And we know that dehydration in children can be fought with just ORT, which is a mixture of salt and sugar and water. But so this engineering was done, I think, basically to capture the market. And unfortunately, when they tested it in Latin America, a couple of children lost their lives from complications. And that experiment ended there because it didn't just make sense going there at all. But GMOs are produced for two major reasons. Number one is either to make them as pesticides to kill pests that would normally attack that particular crop, or to make them herbicide tolerant, which means you can, if you plant corn, a particular genetically engineered corn, GMO corn, on a farm, you can spray certain chemical herbicides across the whole farm, and everything else except the corn that's genetically engineered will die. And so farmers will not need to weed much there. But the problem again with that is you're killing everything else growing on that farm. Is dangerous for biodiversity. We need to have different things growing. We need to protect the soil. So and the pesticide, the herbicide itself would enter the soil, and with water, runoff water, during rainy season and so on, this will go into our rivers and streams and destroy the aquatic ecosystem. And moreover, the chemicals that are being in these herbicides are very dangerous to human health. There's one particular element in the most common chemical is called Roundup, and you can find it on our market. Farmers are using it. It has an element called glyphosate. And glyphosate is known to cause cancer. And there have been thousands of cases in the United States of gardeners or farmers who were exposed to apply, even though they suited up, they dressed in protective gear, they were spraying down chemicals, and they ended up with some cancers. And a lot of millions of dollars have been paid to those victims. And so in Nigeria, our farmers don't dress that way. They don't dress as if they want to go to the moon because they want to spray chemical on their farm. They don't. People just spray the chemicals. They just carry the pack on their back and they begin to spray. And so they're exposed to the problems that would come from the exposure to that chemical. And some years back, some communities in Benue State, about over 230 people died because of pollution of their river, the stream they were drinking water from, that came from the herbicide used on farms. Then the other case is when you make a crop to be a pesticide. You may be happy that, this particular pest would not attack that crop. But, the truth again is that there will be unintended consequences. some other species that you didn't target at all that are beneficial may die. From the pesticide, the spraying of pesticides, from the making crops pesticides, from the spray of herbicides, we have a reduction in the amount of butterflies and bees in the world, especially in the developed world. And they have a problem pollinating their crops. As sometimes even artificial pollination methods are being contemplated, and human beings also are employed to help. So then the other issue I should mention that we should worry about these GMOs is that when you genetically engineer or modify corn, for example, corn in the farm would normally cross-pollinate by wind, by insects, to reproduce. And when you plant these genetically modified crops, they're certainly, by pollen grains carried by wind, by insects, they're going to contaminate our natural native species. So over time, this dominant genetically engineered trait or quality will penetrate all the relatives of that particular crop. And if a disease happens that hinges on that new trait introduced from the laboratory, then what it means that you're going to have serious food crisis in the country.
Well, government will say, well, we are trying to address issues with food insecurity, and that is why we also give credence to others and will bring GMOs into the country. Unfortunately for me also is the fact that most people that sell products in the market, and we that buy in the market, we can't even identify which one is GMO, or can people identify?
Unless it's labeled, you cannot identify it. Even if you go to the farm where they plant GMO corn or natural, you cannot tell the difference because they look alike. It's only when you take it to the laboratory that you get to know that this is different. So this is why labeling is extremely important. And the farms where GMOs are cultivated should not be anywhere near farms where organic cultivation is going on. Otherwise, you come to a point where you just find, in the past, we used to have corn that had a mixture of colors if you open up the cob. And so now you have everything uniform because of hybridization. Now, hybrid can be natural, conventional, or it can be genetically engineered, like in telomeres. Telomeres is genetically engineered. And the problem about this is when farmers buy that seed in the beautiful packet and plant it, now they will harvest during the harvest season, they will harvest the corn, and if they decide to replant from the harvest, normally farmers would harvest and keep some aside. Our mothers used to hang them over the fireplace to dry and preserve the best ones and plant the next planting season. Now, if you harvest genetically engineered corn, the telomeres, from what it is scientists who worked on it have written down, when you plant the one you harvested, it's going to give you very poor harvest. And so farmers don't want to plant and get poorer harvest than what they got the previous year. So the farmers are now forced to always go to the market to buy new seeds. And so it's a way of colonizing the food system. It's a way of grabbing a food system. And if anybody grabs a food system, that your food security is at risk. And we have a big problem. No, we have issues of violence in farms, in Middle Belt, in the Northeast. And some of the seeds being given to farmers to plant when they've been uprooted, displaced from their farms, nobody's testing them. So we don't even know for that one whether they're genetically engineered or they're not. So genetic engineering is basically a business idea. It's like a solution looking for a problem. The solution for us in Nigeria, in Africa, is to maintain the varieties that nature has given us. And the crops we have are very good for our health. The food, when you eat good food, you are protecting yourself. So why expose yourself to something that has a risk? GMOs are not authorized unless the risk assessments are carried out in the laboratory. And you don't carry risk assessment when you don't suspect that there could be a risk. And biosafety is hinged on what is called a precautionary principle. In other words, where there's a possibility of harm, don't do it. But here we're just telling Nigerians, if we approve GMO is safe, therefore eat it, don't worry. That's what the agency is saying, everywhere, on TV, on radio. If we approve it, whatever we approve is safe. And then God, if they have tested them in the laboratories, let them bring out the proof. We've written to the agencies asking for the risk assessment. They will just reply and say, well, it's on the website. And you go to the website, it's not there. They're just laughing and mocking us. We want to know because when they put the advert, they're going to, somebody has applied for GMOs, they want to approve it. Scientists working with us and other organizations sent responses showing why it should not be approved. But they always just discard it because the board that reviews the applications are the same people promoted GMOs in Nigeria. So it's a very rigged system that cannot be trusted.
Well, you've been listening to Dr. Nimo Bassey this morning. We're doing an enlightenment this morning, and for everyone who is sitting out there listening to us this morning, we just want to create an awareness on the influx of GMO into the Nigerian market. Are they safe? Should people consume it? Can you recognize them over the shelf? And when you go to purchase things, and that is the basis for this conversation. Doctor?
I should also add that over the years, we've been doing market shelf surveys. So when you go to supermarkets or the market, the things that are imported into this country, some of them have, if you check the ingredients, people should try to read the ingredients. If you're buying things like cornflakes, you're buying vegetable oil, you are buying biscuits, you are buying even ingredients for making cakes, cake, we all love cake, but you look at the ingredients, you buy the vanilla and stuff like that you buy. Read. Some of them have made from GMO materials or bioengineered materials. But some are not labeled at all. And some of the ones we've seen that are labeled to have GMOs, they don't have that number on them. So these things are just coming in. There's no control. We've lost control. Anything that is in the package, looks beautiful, is brought in. When we checked in a number of cities in the last months of last year, and the most number of GMOs found on the shelves were in Abuja, followed by Lagos, followed by Port Harcourt, and followed by Benin City. So there are a lot in Benin City. When you go to buy those beautiful things, the things to give our children, all those fluffy looking things that children like to chew, they look like corn, they look like made with corn or whatever, they just look beautiful. Read the ingredients. What is this made of?
Well, Joyce?
Yes, I would love the listeners to ask you a few questions. But most importantly, what are the health issues related with ingesting these GMOs or the products that are birthed from these GMOs? Is it something that we should worry about, especially when we go to the market to purchase these things? And also, are they GMOs that are common enough that when the average person goes to the market, they can recognize it?
There's none that you can recognize when you go to the market, except it is labeled. That's why the law requires that GMOs must be labeled, and no one is labeling them.
Are we seeing any follow-through in that department?
Pardon?
I said, are we seeing any follow-through in that department at all?
No, not at all. And they just don't speak about this. They just ignore it. In fact, when GMO beans was given to farmers 2 years ago, some journalists went to the agency that was promoting it, said, how did you explain to farmers? And they said they couldn't explain, so they just told them they're giving them improved seeds. So that is the deception, whereas Nigerians are being ambushed to eat something they know nothing about. Now, there's been a lot of researches, and most of the researches done on the safety of GMOs are limited to maybe guinea pigs in the laboratory for 90 days. That's the limit.
3 months.
3 months only. And they know that after that, anything can happen. So they limit it to where nothing would happen, nothing serious will happen. So again, it's deception and the power of the GMO industry. That's very rich. We're talking about very rich organizations that are pushing this thing around in the world. And there are so many nations that have completely banned. Over 30-something countries have totally banned GMOs. They don't want it. Or some would say, you can bring the product, but don't plant it in our country. And so GMOs are known by scientists who have done longer tests to cause some kinds of cancers, to have liver problems, internal organ tumors. But the most common is those ones that are created not directly by the GMO, but by the herbicides that are being applied on the farms. For example, I mentioned the Roundup Ready that has glyphosate, and the World Health Organization said it's a probable carcinogen. Now, when the World Health Organization says it's probable, I mean it's a diplomatic way of saying it is. And of course, the industry will fight against. They fight against scientists who do rigorous long-term research. In fact, professors have lost their jobs because the job they want to push is about who pays the piper. The piper detects the tune. So that's the problem we're having.
All right, I think at this point we're going to allow the listeners calling to maybe ask you a few questions. So if you have any questions correcting the subject matter, please reach out to us in the studio, and our guests will help to put things clear for you. The numbers to call are these: 08127536932, 070551298881, We also have 0705 5727881. You have the option of texting WhatsApp 0705 967 6881. Efe from Isiho is already on our WhatsApp line. It says, good morning to your guest. I have a lot of respect for Dr. Bassey and what he's doing. What is being revealed seems quite unfortunate, but we seem to have a government that does not care. The informality of food selling is a fertile ground for GMOs to fester. Okay, thank you so much, Efe. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning and welcome. What's your name and where are you calling us from, please?
My name is Obin. I'm calling from Okoro.
Robin, now let me have your question.
Yes, so the topic you're discussing is something very interesting to me. I learned a lot from your guest. I mean, the aspect of using, herbicide. The herbicides, I know it's not. These are the carcinogens. They're not good for the environment. For me, as a farmer, I don't even encourage the use of herbicide. So, and doing GMO that we have herbicides, not something I think is going to be healthy. But for me, as somebody who knows a little about genetics, so if I am thinking of modifying an organism or a crop, let's say either a bacteria or a crop, like to improve this quality, I would naturally think of, looking at the sequence, the DNA sequence of, for example, I want
Sorry, is there a question in here somewhere?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I want to know, because from what he's saying, it looks like having GMO is not really a good idea. For me, I think it's the way to go. Because the current food we have now, if we have to depend on what we have, it will not be sustainable. Population is growing. We need to be able to produce more food that would be sustainable and able to feed the community. So what I'm saying is, if I look at so I want my crop to be split. I have a variety that is split, and I want this particular one to be split now. What I look at the DNA sequence of the one that is split. I look at the one that is not split. Then I have to now edit DNA of the one that is.
All right. So to be clear, you are for GMOs. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think I gathered that. Thank you so much. Good morning.
Yes, I would have loved.
Please go ahead.
I'd like to respond to what he said about
Yes,
because
please.
this is the myth that has been propagated that you need GMOs to feed a growing population. But scientists and farmers have carried out research that if you grow GMO crops and conventional crops under similar conditions, there's hardly any difference in terms of the yield. Even the so-called telomeres that have just been released to the Nigerian market, the yield is not significantly different from that of conventional maize. But the promoters will always tell you there's a big gap in terms of the yield. So it's a myth that anything that is scientific from the laboratory is super good, is super productive. But it's just a myth to capture the market.
What are the alternatives for farmers?
70% of the food that people eat in the world today is from small-scale farmers, growing their food in natural ways, in line with nature, protecting the environment, and just giving people healthy food. 30% come from industrial farming, which could be on genetic engineering. And don't forget one thing: genetic engineering promotes monoculture. You don't have the mixed cropping that we normally have on a farm, where you plant cassava, corn, vegetables, tomato, pepper, and okra at the same time, harvesting them at different times. Because if you plant a mixed cropping with a GMO that is designed to withstand a certain herbicides, if you spray the herbicide, you're going to kill everything else except the GMO. So the thing is that our food system is at risk.
All right. We're already wrapping up now. Our time is going further. I want to ask this question: what kind of measures can we take to protect local farmers and local agriculture from these practices? Especially because if we're going to call a spade, it's very widespread.
We need to have bold governments, like whoever become the governor of Edo State, say Edo State is GMO free, declare GMO, nobody brings GMO into this state. If that goes around, we're going to stop it from anywhere in this country. But if we just allow them and believe the falsehood, because we don't have a government agency that promotes it, doesn't mean that it's right. We shouldn't even have had that agency in the first place. But here we are. It's a fait accompli. So what do? Let's regulate. Let them do the regulation, open up the risk assessment to the public, to criticize, to look at, and have a board that reviews them that is not only made up of promoters of the GMO.
All right. And since we're already here, while we wait on these government policies, I mean, we're Nigerians, this can take a very long time. What can what can I, the average Joe, what can we do?
Right. What we can do, everybody, no matter where you are, try to grow something that you're going to eat. If you like to eat corn, grow corn. You can grow corn in a bucket, in a carton. If you don't have much land in your compound where you live, you have a backyard, grow vegetables there. And don't depend on the shiny things, packaged GMO things that you don't even know where they're coming from or where they're going.
All right. I got a text on our text line. I'm going to read this one. This one says, "Good morning, Super FM. My name is Fabian from Airport Road. Nice listening to your guests there in the studio. My number one question is this. If GMOs are not practically unhealthy, what truly is the problem?"
Unhealthy?
He said if they are not unhealthy, then what is the problem?
Are they unhealthy?
They are unhealthy. Anything that's artificial is unhealthy. Anything made in the laboratory is not natural. We need natural food because GMOs have. I didn't bring a list of what they can cause, but they cause allergies. Because of the kind of things used in the process of designing them in the laboratory. Because allergies could have health problems. And of course, we know the kind of health system that we have in Nigeria. Some people say, well, people are eating GMOs in America, they're not falling dead. But if you go to shops in the US, where you have GMOs with label, you know that all these are GMOs, these ones are organic. And you know where you're going to find, you'll find this in less affluent communities, even in the rich countries. Those who have the means will go for organic. And here we have organic, we grow things with nature. Why do we want to expose ourselves to a situation that we cannot contain?
This is really eye-opening, especially for the space of government policies, because what he just mentioned just reminded me of so many times I've seen people in developed nations saying that, and they'll say, and this is all organic orange, or this is all organic mango. I think that the least that we could expect, especially from our government policies, is giving us the power of choice. If I decide that I want to participate in GMOs, I should be able to also decide that I don't want to participate in GMOs.
Now that's the place of labeling.
And at the end of the day,
precisely, they're not labeled nothing.
These are what these conversations are about. So we are hoping that relevant authorities are sat here listening to us today and are listening to these things that our guests are saying today. And the next time we're here having this conversation, we can look to ourselves and say, do you know what? On this day, July something, we're sat here to have this conversation, and we are happy to announce to you that things are now moving in this direction. But looking at some of the advice that our guests already gave us in the studio, you can start by the tiniest of things. From many of the comments that we received here today, many people are not interested in having these GMOs in their homes. And like our doctor has said, you can start by just growing your own things. And in this economy, honestly, it's a move that you can take. Our time is fast spent. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you just joined us, you can catch the rest of the conversation or a recap of the conversation in two places. You can go on our socials, but on Facebook and on YouTube, and catch the full conversation, or get the Super FM app, Super FM Global. We're going to have a rerun, and you can listen from top to bottom and catch the full conversation. We've been talking to the Executive Director of the Health of Mother Earth Foundation, HOMEF. His name is Dr. Nimo Bassey. Honestly, if you follow Super FM, you must have heard this name at some point. Thank you so much, Doctor. We're really excited to have had you here today. Thank you so much, Israel, for bringing up this conversation as well. Right. It's always a pleasure. My name is Joyce Chukuka. Good morning, Edo State.
Bang your head! Radio. It's like